Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag video for February 2025. This is also my February 2025 book authorathon video. I'm taking part in Books and Lala's coverathon part of that readathon challenge for the year. And if you want to skip to that part of the video, I will leave the timestamp here. But anyway, the page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean the Book Maniac many years ago now. It is based off of a French literary prize wherein the comprisers of the long list of said prize read solely page 112 of the books in contention. And these books I think are all novels and literary novels, and page 112 tends to fall after all of the polished for editors pages, when you get to the raw, real writing somewhere in the middle of the book. And without context for the rest of the story, you can only judge the book based on the quality of that writing. I have this handy-dandy Books and Cats mug, which is filled with pieces of paper containing titles that I've acquired in 2024 or earlier. And in this video, I pull out 3 of the titles at random. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into this, starting with book number 1. Alrighty, well, it seems like this is, oh no, see, some of these stick together, so you like get 2 at a time, so I'm trying not to do that, but I think this is just one book. Alright. Oh, The Latecomer by Jean Hanff Corlitz. This is actually an older book. I think I picked it up from the DC Public Library. They have like a collection, well, in one of the branches I go to often, they have a collection of books you can buy for very cheap. And I found this one and it was on my list. I believe is a Jewish-inspired family drama book. I got a couple years back, and I think I've played with it before on the tag, so less post-production work for me. Huzzah! Now going for book number 2. It would be nice to get a newer book for the variety and the newness, or, you know, what have you. We'll have to see. Here is one. Hopefully it's somewhat different. Well, The Lager Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Straddle. I know this is also an older book that I acquired a few years ago. I think I got it either at the Gaithersburg Book Festival. They had the Friends of the Library have a sale there, or I got it from their actual bookstore. One or the other. I'll find out soon enough. And finally, for book number 3, I think I should try to, you know, gun for a newer purchase here, even if that means more post-production for me. But I have all of these new books on my shelves that I should try to get to, so I'm going to try to go somewhere new in here and pick this one. Ooh, and we'll see what we get. The Lake on Fire by Rosellen Brown. This is also an older book, and I know I got this a couple years ago from my Friends of the Library used bookstore. It's Jewish historical fiction taking place, I believe, during the Gilded Age in Chicago, and I've been looking forward to giving it a go, so we'll see. Okay, you've seen me pick out all 3 of these books. I actually will go read them to myself to begin with, then I'll come back to you and we will discuss them together, so stay tuned. And I'm back and ready to discuss these books with you. Starting with book number 1, The Latecomer by Jean Hanff Corlitz. As before, it was not a gesture that went unnoticed. Cornell, like other institutions of its ilk and pedigree, was inclined to smile upon the children of its alumni. And if Lewin's and Sally's test scores were not among the finest of those applying seniors in Walden's class of 2000, then, well, test scores weren't everything. Cornell had even made an informal inquiry to Walden's principled team of college counselors as to the inclinations of the third triplet, Harrison Oppenheimer, which seemed only right, but Harrison Oppenheimer, by then, had his sights set on a place neither of his parents had ever heard of, and where no Oppenheimer, nor anyone known to the Oppenheimers, nor indeed any graduate of the Walden School, had hitherto set foot. Accepted to that very much under-the-radar institution, and, more or less concurrently, to the somewhat less obscure Harvard University, where he would transfer in due course, Harrison had spent the remainder of his senior year in his bedroom with the door shut, furiously reading and waiting for the clock of his childhood to run out. Sally did not fully process the reality of Ithaca's location in central New York State, nor its true distance from New York City, until, in a painfully self-conscious enactment of the paternal ritual, Salo and Johanna booked a van and driver to transport the new Cornellians and their boxes of bedding and dorm accoutrements upstate. Both kids were subdued, though Salo did manage a breakthrough of sorts when he attempted, in his tuneless voice, to teach them the school song, first in its parodic version. And I actually did a little research, and I might have the melody down. I guess we'll have to see. High above Cayuga's waters, there's an awful smell. 20,000 sons of bitches call themselves Cornell. Ugh, said Lewin, who had long endured certain concerns about his own personal hygiene. Well, it's better than the original, said Salo. Far above Cayuga's waters, with its waves of blue, stands our noble alma mater, glorious to view. I gotta say, that was fun to end on, and that melody reminds me immediately of Dirty Dancing, the movie, so that made it even more appealing. And I did enjoy this page a bit. I guess, you know, in terms of subject matter, where I'm biased and where I'm not biased, this upper crust snobbery can be pretty fun, especially in a sprawling book that I believe is very much about a family epic. Although the writing, I think, was a bit formal, like strangely formal, especially for a story set in 2000s with teenagers of the time, which made it kind of endearing, but at the same time, I don't know, a little distant, and there was a lot more exposition in this one than the other two. So it wasn't quite as approachable, I think, in terms of how page 112 tags go. But at the same time, you know, I'm just immediately taken in by, you know, kids going off to college and what's going to happen to them and what's going to happen to Harrison, the third triplet, and where he's going to go for a while, which we'll probably get to later in this. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely intrigued. Book number 2 is The Logger Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Straddle. Of course, he thought she was being too humble. The truth was, she really didn't remember. Actually, it's probably all a big mistake. I don't even want to go to college anyway. You don't want to go to college? Paul asked, not scandalized like the principal, but more like someone who just watched a 6-year-old choose broccoli over pizza. Just then, a tall guy with a camera around his neck and a skinny, bespectacled kid in a white Harvard sweatshirt walked up from behind. "Oh, here you are," camera guy said. "You're by the football trophy case. We were waiting for you by the hockey trophy case." "I knew you guys would get it wrong," Nate Ryan said. And then there's a break. After school, Diana had found a notary, walked there, convinced the notary to stamp the letter, paid his fee, and walked again to the impound lot, pet the skinny dog, and this time had to stand in line behind 2 women who, like Diana the day before, were attempting to locate Brad Bart's absent good nature. "You don't understand," one of the women kept saying. She was wearing a pink jacket that was too short for her, and looked Mexican or maybe Salvadoran. "I understand that you owe this company $280, Brad Bart said. Diana did the math in her head. Their car had been impounded for 4 days. "What you don't understand is that you won't get your car back until you pay me. Next. Next!" The women brushed past Diana and slammed the trailer door behind them, hard enough that it popped open again. "You mind closing that door?" Brad Bart asked. "Sure," Diana said, like a dork, and did what she was told. Okay, so this is sort of definitely the example of an in media res page where we're starting in the middle of a random conversation So that kind of like puts you at a little bit of a distance because you don't have any of the context, and that's kind of the point. And for me, what it feels like, at least, like the first part's a little bit overwrought, or at least I guess the trophy case talk. I mean, maybe it was a joke from earlier and I would have liked it better, but in terms of like hearing it out of context, it feels like rather strained speech. I also make a fair amount of assumptions about this, like maybe they're at a college admissions fair, or just feels like maybe with a Harvard sweatshirt, maybe that's what's going on, and they were just talking about college, the two characters. It's intriguing that one of them says to the other, you don't want to go to college, and seems kind of impressed by it, going by the metaphor about pizza and broccoli, which could say something about, where he's coming from. Obviously there's a lot of different reasons people do or don't choose college, and we have no context for any of these people. But it's intriguing to think about. But I feel like the second part, just in general, was much more interesting about this page, where we're at the impound lot, and Brad Bart immediately comes off the page as a fun character. At least it's fun to read about him from afar. I'd probably not want to be in that trailer with him either, but that second part of the page kind of saved it for me. So like even, without context for the rest of the story, the character pops enough that, you kind of want to see how Diana's going to handle things. She's off to a rocky start, it feels like, but, hopefully she'll get what she came for, I guess, and have better luck than those other two women, I hope. And finally, book number 3 is The Lake on Fire by Rosellen Brown, which, even though I acquired all 3 of these books in 2023, I have not played with this book before, so that's very exciting. And here I go. I'm actually going to be reading from page 114 because, page 112 is a very short end of a chapter. If there was ever a profession devoted to the moment and eager to be unimpressed, it was pawn. He had heard about these shops from an older boy who also ran the alleys, who said it was magic, how they changed objects into cash. There was a whole row of them on Wabash behind flashy windows full of shine. Above them 3 balls floating like bubbles, but solid. You come in here, you can be any kind of pirate you want to be, his first pawn man told Asher, a huge fellow with basset eyes and a terrier's mouth-obliterating mustache, who made spark-quick decisions about the value of anything Asher put down before him. Was he guessing, or was there a book you could learn that from? The man didn't seem to think it odd that he had to lean over the counter even to see the boy. You can con people to get their stuff. You can steal your grandmother's silver or get it nice in her will. You can bring me a .22 or turn in your wedding ring. Asher laughed. His .22, his wedding ring! This profession, we can't afford to be curious about it. Doesn't matter where it comes from, doesn't matter why you need the cash money. Asher had dropped a small rainbow of pilfered jewelry on the counter. The man fingered it lightly. Maybe it was telling him something, the feel of it, the weight speaking out numbers. You never want to look in nobody's eyes, follow me? The last thing you need behind this counter is sympathy. He made a mock-sour face and shook off the idea with a twitch of his shoulder. Sympathy? He made a little sound of disgust and held out one of the bracelets to the light. $5 for the lot. Sympathy was the word that did it. Asher listened to the man's contempt. Probably only last-gasp people came in here, like Christians going to church when they needed something from God. Why should the pawn man make that seem like a sickness? The word opened wide and took Asher in. He had an idea, new, a light breaking, a sunrise, his spark-quick decision, about how to take the sympathy that brimmed over in him, unashamed, and do something solid with it. And then there's a break. Monday morning, the day after a performance, stomach full of pheasant and praline, served in the kitchen, but served at least, he shoveled the weekend's take off of the table and into his lumpy bag. Okay, so, I don't know, it's my second time reading through this, and I guess I still don't like it all that much. Even starting from the first sentence, that just seems very awkwardly phrased to me, like, I don't know, a profession devoted to the moment and eager to be unimpressed. That's very wordy. And pawn, is that how you would say the actual profession of, being a pawnbroker, I guess? But that might be me being a little too nitpicky. But After that, we see Asher come in. I think, it's obvious he's a young boy, so maybe the joke that lands the most is the idea of him having a gun or a wedding ring. I don't know. But I'm also confused about the relationship between Asher and this pawn man. Like, is he there for a job or is he there to pawn things? And because he does bring pilfered jewelry to pawn, and it's like the pawn man is like laying out on the table exactly the psychological tools he uses against his own clients, which doesn't seem a smart thing to do if this is one of your, clients, one of your, paid customers or whatever. So I'm not quite sure of the relationship. And then I also have to say that, the message that Asher takes away from this encounter, I feel like it doesn't necessarily match the conversation. I mean, maybe it matches other things in the story. But to me, what this conversation took away is the pawnbroker's lack of sympathy. I mean, that's pretty obvious from the sympathy. Asher's making all of these grand assumptions about the types of people who come in, which, well, I don't know, it's not supported by the page anyway. Maybe it is supported by the rest of the story. Maybe I should, gauge that. But I guess, it's not like, I don't feel like the pawn man made anything seem like a sickness other than he himself feeling sympathy. He doesn't think about his customers at all. That's quite obvious from what he's saying on the page. He's just there to make money with what's ever in front of him. And so this really, I mean, the whole thing says a lot more about the psychology of the pawnbroker than it does about any of the customers. So I just don't feel like, this connection Asher is making about, feeling more sympathy himself toward other people. I'm not sure it quite lands the way he's saying it. I mean, I guess it would make more sense if it's like, God, I don't want to be like this asshole, and I want to be more sympathetic. So I don't know. I mean, I feel bad. I don't like being critical about these pages. And I've been looking forward to this one a lot, this book. It's Gilded Age Chicago from a Jewish perspective. And so in terms of what the book's about, I'm still very interested, and it is on my Goodreads TBR, but for the sake of the page 112 tag, I think I'm going to put it down. And that leaves my pick for February between these two books, The Latecomer and The Logger Queen of Minnesota. And, I did like some things, especially at the end of the page in here, the relationship between Diane and Brad Bart, at the impound lot. I feel like, it's another very unsympathetic character, Brad is, but, he's fun to watch. And certainly anything Diane thinks about him seems like appropriate, what she's experienced. But the first half, it's one of those things that might only make sense if you have the context, I guess, but I felt like the wording was a bit clunky about, I guess, a college fair or whatever was going on between those people meeting at a trophy case, so it was uneven in that way. And I feel like The Latecomer is just generally more even. It's also about college life, which is kind of fun to have that, connection between these two books. But, it stays pretty close with the family. It stays pretty close on, theme with, the kids going off to Cornell and what that means, and, one of them not going to Cornell, but I don't know, that makes it feel like there's a lot of promise for a deeper story following different characters. And I got to sing, as I was reading through this, and that was pretty fun and unusual. I'm almost sad to take this off of my contenders list because I won't be able to use that clip anymore, but I feel like, I want to follow some, maybe elite school kids, college kids around, and a college family around, and so I'm going to go with The Latecomer by Jean Hanff Corlitz. And finally, it's time to reveal my February Buzzwordathon pick. I was saying it wrong before, I guess that's why I was having trouble with the word. But the Buzzwordathon and the Buzzwordathon Coverathon this year was created by Kayla at Books and Lala, and she thinks up all of these prompts to last us through the year based off of popular trends in book publishing. And I needed an excuse to read through the incredibly large haul I did in September when I went up to Manhattan for a day, and I went to the big Raid the Shelves event at the Jewish Book Council, and I got like 18 books, and I'm like, I really need to justify this by finding a way to read through them this year. So I thought the Coverathon really worked for me if I could be a little creative with the prompts. And so here I go. I started in January with my first book, and now we're on to February, where the prompt is for the Coverathon is to choose a cover with a skyline. And so I'm going for The Shadows We Carry by Meryl Ein, perhaps my first controversial pick, because it seems like most people define a skyline as including a city of some sort. And, you know, obviously we are in a rural environment with no buildings to be seen here. But I did a little digging on Google, and I found a definition that says skyline is the apparent juncture of earth and sky, and it's even highlighted in blue. See? And that definitely counts here. There's an apparent juncture between earth and sky, with sky being a fair bit bigger than earth in this case, but the juncture is there. And so I'm definitely going to go with this book, and certainly in terms of controversial picks, in terms of how they fit the prompts, this is probably one of my lesser offenders. We'll have more coming up in later months, just wait. But that about covers it for me now. I'm going to link to Kayla's announcement video for 2025 for the Buzzwordathon down below, and also the Goodreads pages for all of the books I've mentioned in this video linked down below as well. And I hope to be back on this channel in the near future with an Am Reading video update for February, which means I've really got to get my reading game on. So anyway, stay tuned for that, hopefully soon. I'd love to know if you are playing along with the Buzzwordathon challenges, the cover one or the title one, and what books you've picked, or how else you are choosing your books for your February TBR and how that's going. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.